Hello, Dr. McLean here, and I want to talk to you today about natural ways to lower your cortisol levels. Now, cortisol is a stress hormone, and we have it in higher levels in our body than we want. It can affect a lot of different things negatively. Number one, it causes us to have belly fat, something we all want to avoid. It depletes the immune system, and that's a really big deal if you're trying to avoid autoimmune disorders and immune type of issues. It can affect our ability to focus. It can affect our memory. A lot of times this is blamed on old age. I have a senior moment. I can't remember things like I used to. And a lot of times that's due to high levels of cortisol in our body that have been maintained there for long periods of time. So let's talk about some natural ways that you can lower it and a little bit of understanding about it. So cortisol is released in response to stress. It's a stress hormone. It's one of the hormones that's released by our adrenal glands, which sit on top of our kidneys. And the challenge that we have as human beings is that we can think about something stressful and produce these stress hormones. So cortisol is meant for a short-term stressor. In other words, a fight or flight response is supposed to be maintained for a short amount of time, but we think about all day long about how we're going to pay our bills, or how our marriage isn't going well, or our business isn't doing well, or gas prices are going up, or whatever that stress might be. Just thinking about that causes these stress hormones to be released. So we do want to work on our stress levels as well, but let's also talk about some natural things that can bring that down. So one thing to understand about hormones, number one, cortisol is always looked at as a negative or a bad hormone. But remember, it is produced by your body naturally. It serves its purpose. We just, again, don't want to have it in high levels. So anytime we look at something that's produced naturally by the body, like cholesterol or cortisol, those are natural things. We need those things in the right amounts. So it has positive properties too. So it's not about just lowering cortisol, it's getting our body to heal and function the way that it's supposed to. Now, in our body also, we have opposing hormones, meaning when one goes up, the other one goes down, and vice versa. So a good way to look at this is, I remember as a kid, I don't know why this memory always sticks out to me, but I was maybe 6 years old, and I was in the back seat of my parents' car. My mom was driving, and I remember seeing her hands on the steering wheel. We're going perfectly straight down the road, but she kept having to move her hand, and I didn't figure that out for much later. Why are we going perfectly straight? Why do you have to move your hands on the steering wheel? Well, it's because, as you probably know, if you know how to drive, if you start to lean, your car starts to go one way direction, you've got to twitch it back in the other direction and twitch it back in the other direction so you can continue to go straight. And so that's kind of the way that our hormones work. One goes up a little bit, and then it's got to come down. Another one comes up to take its place. So you have these opposing hormones. So my point with this is that growth hormone is the opposing, or one of the opposing hormones to cortisol. When growth hormone goes up, cortisol goes down, and vice versa. And growth hormone serves a lot of different things. So one of the things we can look at is, if we can do things to drive growth hormone up, it's going to drive cortisol down naturally. So one big thing we know, such a simple thing, is sleep. When we get good deep sleep, growth hormone is released. So this is where, if you're getting poor sleep, even if you're sleeping long periods of time, but you're not getting that deep REM sleep, you're not going to have a good release of growth hormone. And even if you're not emotionally stressed at all, it's going to cause this cortisol levels to go up, and that can actually make you feel stressed, even if you didn't have a stressor in your life at the time going on. So a couple things that we can do to improve our sleep. And there's a million different things you can do. Let me give you just a couple of tips that can help. Number one is have a sleep routine. Because we don't live outside, most of us, you don't have the natural cues of the sunset and the sun going down to cue us that it's time to go to sleep, or at least it's the nighttime. So we want to create some natural rhythms in our life to cue us to sleep. So ideally, go to bed about the same time each night, and have a routine that triggers to your mind that it's time to shut down, it's time to start to wind down, it's time to start to go to sleep. So this works with my kids. We always read books before we go to bed. So to cue to them, if we're going to sit on the couch and read books, they know, okay, it's time to go to sleep. We don't have to tell them that. It's been wired into their brains. We've done it for such a long period of time. So you want to create that for yourself as well. Now, this could be a routine that lasts 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes or a half hour, whatever you think is appropriate for you. So it could be, a half hour before you go to bed, you brush your teeth, and then you read a book for 10 minutes, and then you write in your journal, or whatever it is. You want it to be non-stimulatory activities that are going to help wind your brain down, not stimulate it. Another thing you want to do is really watch your screen time. We know your phone, computers, that screen, that signal really stimulates the brain, even television. So Ideally, you cut that out at least 2 hours before you go to sleep. I know that's hard for some people, but the longer you can do it, the better. If it's a half hour, that's better than no time at all. So you don't want to do is look at your phone right before you go to bed. So I use my phone for my alarm, but I put it in airplane mode and I set my alarm, a couple hours before I go to sleep, and I plug it in, put it next to my bed so I don't have to turn it on right before I go to bed. At least I try not to. I'm not perfect on that, but I really work on that. And you'd be amazed how much that affects your sleep. Now, the third thing you can do is really, really simple, takes no effort whatsoever, is if you have Wi-Fi signals in your house, those really affect our cells. There's a lot of new research coming out on that. So, you don't use your Wi-Fi at night, you're sleeping, so you don't need the Wi-Fi signals. Turn your Wi-Fi off at night, and you'll be amazed how much this will affect your sleep. I've had so many people, so many patients of mine tell me immediately, just making that change, they immediately started to sleep better. Now, you get up in the morning, you want to turn it back on, no problem, but you're not using it when you sleep as well. So number one is get a good sleep routine. If that's all you did, that will help you tremendously with your health. Now, the second thing we will look for is insulin growth factor. Now, insulin growth factor is released in response to regulate our blood sugars and our energy when we are fasting. So we have insulin that regulates it when we're eating, and insulin growth factor when we're fasting. So the problem is that we don't release it if we're constantly grazing. So if you're constantly eating food throughout the day, that used to be really things that you want to kind of keep a constant flow of blood sugars or sugar into your body to maintain your blood sugars. And this is what I used to do, is just constantly snack all day long. And you don't get those gaps to allow that to be released. That's another thing that can influence growth hormone, which is going to bring that cortisol down. So try to get it down to 2 or 3 meals throughout the day. And then something, I'll maybe make another video on this as well, is intermittent fasting. That might be a good fit for you. That's something I've been doing for a while now. It's helped me tremendously, where you shrink your eating down to about a 6 to 8 hour window. The other times you're fasting, you're not eating anything, just drinking fluids like water or tea. And that can work tremendous for, again, boosting this growth hormone and bringing the cortisol down. Now, another thing is sun, just vitamin D, getting our vitamin D levels up. This is the third thing you can do. And that's going to help bring, again, those cortisol levels down. There's so many different benefits to getting our vitamin D levels up. So I do recommend to supplement with this. Ideally, we should get all that directly from the sun or from our foods, but that's hard for a lot of people to do, especially adults, and especially where you live. The further you get away from the equator, the less direct sunlight you're getting. So even if you're out in the sun, you're not getting that exposure. And if you do like myself, I live in Montana here, there's a lot of days we're not getting that sun exposure. So even if you're spending time outside, you're not getting that exposure. So I do recommend to supplement that. So I recommend for most adults at least 5,000 international units per day. I actually do 10,000 international units per day of where I'm at. And then if I know it's a sunny day, I'm going to be outside, then I won't take my supplement that day, but I take it most days. Okay, so that's another thing you can do, is make sure you're getting appropriate sun exposure. And again, so many different healing effects that I've got a lot of questions on vitamin D3 as well. So I'm in the process of making another video. I'll link that in the comments below as soon as I get that done as well. Another thing we can do is exercise. And as simple as this is, again, exercise does a couple different things. Number one, it relaxes us. Even if you don't like exercise, I promise it will help relax you. But also if you are stressed, and you can, especially if it's higher intensity exercise, you can help burn off some of these stress hormones. So when we get stressed, we release these stress hormones, we get amped up just a little bit. So if you can do things like lift weights or do a higher intensity activity, you can actually burn off some of those stress hormones. Now, depending on where you're at, maybe you've got rheumatoid arthritis, or you've got immune system issues, or you've got fibromyalgia, and you're just not feeling good, and it's really difficult to exercise, just start with something, right? It can be a 5-minute walk. It can be, in the evenings you're sitting reading a book or watching TV. Get up every 20 minutes and just march in place. Just move your joints. And just start there, 5 minutes a day. And then as that starts to feel a little bit better, then go for 7 minutes a day. No matter where you're at, just get started, get some movement in. And I can tell you, a couple years ago here, I slipped on the ice and I shattered my hip. And so I couldn't do any weight-bearing activities with my lower extremities. So I just got some bands and I just started sitting in a chair and I just started to make sure I moved my upper body. That got my heart rate up just a little bit, and it kept my muscles, at least my upper body muscles, working. And then I was able to, I started going up and down the stairs. I went to my home gym and I started lifting weights just with my lower body. And it wasn't the same as using my whole body, but at least I was getting some movement in. So wherever you're at, I know sometimes that can be difficult, especially when you're not feeling good, but I promise the more you start to do it, you're going to start to feel better and you're going to want to do it more. So start with 5 minutes a day, or 7 minutes, or 1 minute, whatever you can do, and then just build from there. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to look at is obviously trying to lower our stress levels. So these are things going to help oppose that cortisol levels, the prior things that I spoke about. Now we want to look at, okay, what can we do to actually lower that stress level? So the thing that you have to understand, I know this is, sounds easier than it actually is, but it's not the stress, it's our response to the stress. Right? I know easier said than done, but if we can look at in our life, just make a list first of all. What are the things that are stressing you out? Okay, make a list of whatever those things are, 1, 2, 3 things, whatever kind of your top things are for you, and then start listing some things that you can do to start to bring those stress levels down. Just start with that, and then you can start to move in the right direction. One of the things, again, as simple as this sounds, is to schedule some time to have some fun. This is a big deal for me because I'm kind of a workaholic. I love what I do, but I'm constantly got to get more done. So scheduling some time to visualize, to meditate, to go for a nice walk, to go meet a friend for coffee. What are things that are relaxing for you? You've got to actually schedule it into your day. And it doesn't have to take long. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that is. It can be a walk outside for just 10 minutes, thinking about nothing. Those will really help lower those stress levels and bring up the positive hormones as well. Another thing I recommend is visualization. And this is something that's really worked well for me. So you can use this a lot of different ways. And the reality is, if that sounds kind of hard to you, you already are visualizing, usually in the negative way. And what I mean by that is, let's say you enjoy your job, you're doing great at work, but then you work in a retail position and somebody comes in and yells at you. A customer comes in and yells at you one day, you have a bad customer experience. And ever from that point on, you don't realize it, but every time you go to work, you have a little bit of stress because our brain is anchored in that this might be a dangerous environment. So you're a little bit stressed. So you can, visualization can be in a negative way. Every time you think about walking in, you think about what's going to happen today, who's going to yell at me today. And again, a lot of times this is on what's called a subconscious level. You don't even realize you're doing this in your brain. So what you can do is just spend a few minutes each day, start to visualizing when you're in that work setting to be relaxed. And if some customer gets upset with you, which is going to happen from time to time, that you're going to stay relaxed and you're going to start to be able to handle that situation in the correct way. And you start to visualize it over and over before the situation happens. So when it actually happens, you're much more relaxed. So those are some things that have really helped me. If this is helpful to you, please comment or question below. We'd love to hear your feedback and what questions you might have. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to our page. We want to be able to help reach more people and spread the message.